Have you ever sat in the middle of the night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, God, what are you doing? The pain doesn't make sense. The waiting feels endless, and all you can feel is the silence. You pray, you cry, you believe, yet nothing seems to change. But listen closely. Just because you can't see God's hand doesn't mean his plan has stopped moving. God's plan is still working, even in pain. Pain has a way of blinding us. It makes us believe that God left the room. But the truth is, pain often becomes the platform where his greatest miracles are born. When Joseph sat in the dark prison cell, betrayed by his brothers, forgotten by everyone, God's plan was still unfolding. What looked like the end was the doorway to the palace, because every chain in that cell was part of God's divine blueprint. You may not understand what's happening right now, but Romans 8:28 promises, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God. Not some things, not only the good things, all things, even heartbreak, even betrayal, even the sleepless nights when you whisper, "Why me, God?" He hears you. He's shaping something eternal through every tear that falls. Maybe you lost someone you loved. Maybe the job you counted on disappeared. Maybe the relationship you prayed for ended without reason. And you thought, surely this can't be part of God's plan. But friend, the same God who allowed the cross also brought the resurrection. If the grave couldn't cancel Jesus' purpose, then your pain can't cancel yours. The enemy wants you to quit in the middle of the process. He whispers, if God really cared, he wouldn't let this happen. But Satan doesn't get the final word. God does. Remember Job? He lost everything. His wealth, his children, his health. But in the end, God restored double for every loss. Because even when Job couldn't trace God's hand, he still trusted his heart. Your pain has a purpose. Every delay, every disappointment, every lonely season is preparing you for something divine. You might not see it now, but God is using the very thing that hurt you to heal someone else through you. That's what he does. He turns wounds into testimonies, scars into strength, and broken people into beacons of his glory. Sometimes the reason God doesn't remove the pain is because he's revealing himself through it. In your weakness, his strength shines brighter. In your loss, his presence feels deeper. And in your waiting, your faith grows stronger. 2 Corinthians 12:9 says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. So if you feel weak today, you're in the perfect place for God to show his power. Don't mistake the silence for absence. The teacher is always quiet during the test, but he's right there in the room, watching, guiding, believing in you. You may not feel him, but he's closer than the breath in your lungs. Look back on your life for a moment. How many times did you think, this is the end, only to later say, now I see why God did that? That's the mystery of his plan. We live it forward, but understand it only backward. The cross looked like defeat, but it was victory in disguise. When Jesus hung there, bleeding and broken, heaven was silent, but not still. Behind the curtain of suffering, redemption was unfolding. 3 days later, the stone rolled away. The pain had a purpose. The plan was never dead, just hidden. And the same God who turned the cross into resurrection can turn your pain into purpose. So hold on. Don't give up now. This chapter may be heavy, but it's not the end of your story. God's plan is still moving, quietly, faithfully, powerfully, behind every closed door, behind every tear, behind every prayer you thought went unheard. Father, for the person listening right now who feels lost in the dark, remind them that you are still working, that you never stop writing their story, that what looks like a setback is simply a setup for your glory. Strengthen their faith, heal their heart, show them that pain is never wasted in your hands, because the plan hasn't failed. It's unfolding. And you, God, make all things beautiful, in time. Hold on to hope. God's plan is still working, and even in your pain,